Achei importante falar do racismo nos Estados Unidos e por isso hoje convidei o Kai Adderley, um educador e consultor educacional e, mais importante ainda, ele morou no Brasil. Essa pergunta é de Pedro Heran. Qual a diferença do racismo nos Estados Unidos e no Brasil, se ele sente que aqui é mais velado ou vice-versa?
Both countries have a long, terrible history with racism. And it's bad in both places. It is bad. I struggled in Brazil. I struggled in the US with the many different forms of how it reveals itself. And the most frustrating part of it for me is that how systemic it is, how planned and how ingrained it is into every aspect of life.
But what's the difference?
There's a bigger part of classism that plays a role in Brazil. I got the apple pie treatment when I was dressed more American. It seemed as though people looked past my race and did not think that I was a criminal or had just robbed someone. But at the same time, they did not think that I was a consultant doing education work in Brazil with top officials and families and foundations. They asked me over and over again, you know, what sport do I play? What dance group am I part of? Can I sing a song for them on the spot? You know, in Equador, na praia, you know, and so these forms, they're both bad. It's, you don't think I'm a killer, but you think I'm a dancer. Quando eu morei em Brazil, I lived in Equador, na Rua Francisco Taviana, na praia. People saw me and saw me consistently enough to think, well, does he live here? If you're black living here, what possibly could you do? So I got questioned daily, and here's my two lies. I have a dog, Rhodesian Ridgeback, Leon de Rhodesia.
I love, I've seen your dog on social media at some point.
You're walking a dog, you know, whose dog are you walking? Who, you know, what service are you providing? To the point where I would return to my own apartment building, and sometimes the doormen wouldn't let me in because they wouldn't buzz me in because they, you know, they maybe switched a shift and they didn't recognize me. I couldn't get in my own apartment anymore. So sometimes, you know, the people who were displaying this racism were black also.
Oh.
It wasn't just white Brazilians. They were, you know, the doormen, the porteiros were black or brown guys as well.
Essa pergunta do Vai Corinthians. Oh boy. A pergunta era se Kai já se sentiu superior ou se ele já discriminou alguma outra raça.
Subconsciously, I think we've all been trained to respond to our environments. And, you know, what you're taught about that environment is going to be your reaction. You know, if I throw a ball at you, you're going to duck. You know, if you watch the news every night and you see black and brown people as the criminals every single day, I don't know if you're a human being if you walk outside and see someone that looks like what you just saw on TV and you don't flinch and double take and cross the street and everything else. Right. I absolutely have done that myself as someone who has grown up in the inner city and has gone to, you know, Georgetown University, prestigious schools, and been in environments where typically I am the only black person in the room. And so if I encounter another black person, I instantly go to some of the prescripted images and thoughts that I have in my mind or I've been exposed to when I see that person.
Have you ever taken the those I call them the racism tests, but those tests online that you know you have to click really fast. Absolutely. If you.
Yes, I've taken them, and I've absolutely have seen some of my biases that I have.
Those things are available in Portuguese, by the way. Vou colocar link na descrição para quem quer testar o seu racismo implícito. Kyle, there's a bunch of questions here about how to educate our children. People want to know, like Maria Eloísa Costa, como podemos fazer para educarmos as nossas crianças a não serem racistas com o racismo tão enraizado em nossa sociedade? What about your daughter? How are you talking to her about this? Quantos filhos você tem? Dois?
Dois, menina e menino.
Como
Gigi
chamam?
e Julian. Gisela nasceu em Brazil, em Rio de Janeiro. And I'll start off with sharing that, you know, while living in Brazil, and I mentioned that, you know, I moved there because of my love affair with Afro-Brazilian culture and capoeira and the food and the music. I mean, it just really speaks to my soul and heart as someone who is African, from the African diaspora.
Let me quickly interrupt and say, what are your favorite
Sure.
foods in Brazil? Because I know people are going to want to know.
Well, açaí com morango e mel. Todo dia.
You're such a carioca.
Tigela grande, banana ao lado. Ah, it's the best. I miss my açaí deeply. So for me, you know, I'm living part of a dream, being in Brazil, and minha filha, neném de Copa do Mundo. She was born during the World Cup, 2014.
Not during the Germany game, I hope.
Not during the Germany game. Yeah. So here's my little carioca. You know, I had images and thoughts that we would stay there for quite some time, and over a quick, you know, 2 or 3 years, I began to realize that at her age, I could not protect her from the racism that I felt and experienced in Brazil, and the systems that were set up for people that look like her. And my wife is, you know, of fairer skin, so my daughter has, you know, it would be considered a light child. Light brown. Often people would stop me and tell me I'm so lucky that I had such a light child and to be so dark. So I would get stopped, again, often by Afro-Brazilians, and they would tell me how lucky I am to have such a fair, you know, claro child. We said we cannot bring our child up in a place where the biases and the racism is so overt in everything that happens throughout your daily life, but no one speaks on it. They want to call it something else.
But did you ever have, did people ever ask you about racism in the U.S. with the sort of presumption that it was much worse?
Absolutely, all the time. They were very shocked to hear my response, and I stand by this, that the day-to-day racism that I experienced was much more frequent in Brazil than it was in the United States. Because, see, here in the United States now, there are enough examples of black people who have succeeded that it doesn't seem odd. It doesn't seem, you know, something that is totally out of Disney World. Where in Brazil, people were floored to find out that I was not the dog walker and lived in Ecuador. When my wife was pregnant, we get on the elevator and a woman in the building kind of, you know, looked at us and saw that my wife was pregnant and said congratulations, and then looked back again and said, wait a minute. Like, you two? She literally, she thought that I was the dog walker and the help. So when they found out that I had a baby with her, they were like, oh my gosh. This is like better than, you know, Avenida Brazil. So my, you know, going back, so my daughter, you know, we're in Brazil. We decide to leave for the reasons of the deep, systematic, institutional racism that I've found way too massive to overcome in her lifetime. Right. And so the only way that she would avoid it would be by existing in an elite society only in Brazil, which was not something that we wanted to give her as an experience. So to the question, I think that's it. You have to go outside of your community. You have to go outside of your experience. With our daughter, with our children, we take them with us to communities that have less than we do, and they see us very early serving those communities, communicating and building relationships with those communities. If you have conversations early enough, or whenever you have these conversations, you'll begin to break down the biases and stereotypes that you have, because most of them were formed from, you know, some source of literature or media, or, you know, a story that you heard, not from firsthand experience. So you have to go out and experience different communities. If it's good enough for anyone to live there, it's definitely good enough for someone to visit.
What would you suggest to people in Brazil who are in a position of privilege, or people in the U.S.? How can we contribute to the cause and not go, you know, be counterproductive?
One is be a great listener. Read about it, talk to folks about it that have the firsthand experience, and not offer a solution. Right? Just listen and just try to understand what the problem is.
Well, I'll even go further than that. Listen, but also believe it. Like,
believe it.
Don't question it. This is the experience. Your skepticism of it is not needed.
Listen and believe it, right? And be okay with just that. You know, sometimes I felt that I would just appreciate someone that just listened. You don't have to say anything in response. Right. You don't have to have an answer, because if there was an answer that easily available, trust me, we would have tried it.
Sure.
The other part of that is to take action, right? When you see someone being racist, you got to take action. Yeah. Whether it's verbal. I saw a video yesterday of a police officer who was using a bike to hit a protester, and a white woman saw what was going on and literally just jumped in between the bike and the black woman. Now, I'm not saying put your life in danger, but take some kind of action. There's ways to take action on social media. There's ways to take action in your communities with your local politicians. There's ways to take action in your own family. I think what's so powerful about what's happening right now is that it's not a black thing. Right? A black thing started it, but the movement and the protests right now, it's people that are angry with our president for other reasons. It's people that are just angry with the lack of human nature and kindness that they witnessed on that video, that are speaking out.
As a person who sometimes sees things that he thinks he should get involved in and chickens out, it's not as easy as it seems to take action. So when you say, okay, we'll all agree with you, like, sure, take action. But what you got to do is realize you really do have to take action. It's not always easy, and it's uncomfortable, and you might alienate a friend, or you might make an enemy, or you might run a small risk of something happening.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is...
If you care... And you really, you know, because I got letters from friends and previous teachers, and I appreciate it. I do. I appreciate the support and the allies. But true allies, you know, if it was their child, they wouldn't write their letter to a child and say, I'm sorry that you experienced the bullying at school. The parent would go right up to that school and say, there's no more bullying happening with my child, or I'm pulling my kid out. Speaking of Brazil, I think that, you know, why I left was because that there weren't these conversations happening on the street. That no one noticed or cared that you're stepping over children that are homeless on the sidewalk, and every single one of them are black and brown. That every single person that works in Zona Sul in a service job is black and brown. Like, start having these conversations, then I feel like that's part of taking action.
Thank you for taking time in such a difficult period in so many ways to speak to Brazilians who I know you feel a really strong tie to.
Absolutely, and muito obrigado para você for creating this platform. Sure. This is part of taking action. Sharing the story, letting people wrestle with questions, and hearing from different perspectives. This is how we move forward. So I appreciate you and appreciate everything that you've done.